of talking to processing from Scratch using the new Scratch extensions thing that they have. So I've made a Scratch project in this folder, and it's a pretty simple project. It's got the bug and the cat, and the cat, when you hold down the button, it moves towards the mouse. The bug doesn't really do anything with Scratch by itself. So if I click on the bug sprite, you can see when the sketch starts, it says it's going to go to CubeBot X and Y position, and that's what I've done with this extension. So if you go to the More Blocks section, this is the extension I made, and this is a little bit in Scratch that lets it talk to processing. So to go along with this Scratch project, I've got a processing sketch and a little JSON file which specifies the commands that this processing sketch makes available for Scratch. So it's a pretty simple format, and you can read about that in the links that I'll provide. But so you can see here in this one, it's got a block that will say hello, a block that will report the CubeX position, Y, and heading, and then a command block that will let you set the X and Y position of a CubeBot. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. And this is the processing sketch, and it's a little bit more complicated than I would like it to be, but I'm not very familiar with dealing with HTTP requests in processing, so I ended up using the Jetty Java server and just embedding that in processing. So this is a pretty quick and dirty way of doing it, I guess, but I actually it seems to work reasonably well. So all of these inputs here are to import the Jetty server, and then down the bottom there's a little function to start the server up, and this part here is important. It says what URLs we're going to hook up the functions that we define to the server. And you'll notice that these ones here, greet and ScratchX and ScratchY, they match some of the titles that we had here, ScratchX, ScratchY, greet. And then bot X, Y, and R, they actually get reported in the poll. You'll notice that bot X, Y, and R are reporting blocks, and what happens is they get reported each time that the sketch is polled. In the tab here called responses, I've just got a bunch of really dumb classes that each extends a HTTP servlet with a response. And I'm no Jetty expert, I just figured this out today and it kind of works. So it's probably not the best way to do it. But I've got one for a responding to the poll request, and this just writes out the X, Y, and R value of the bot. One that deals with being asked to give a greetings, and it sort of, you'll see it says hello on the screen. One that sets the X value of this from Scratch, and one that sets the Y value from Scratch. So let's run it and see what actually happens. So when I run this sketch, the canvas opens and it's got a little red ellipse and a green square. And the positions of these are going to map to the two Scratch characters. So if I run the Scratch sketch at the same time, and if you look down here, you'll see the output from the server. You'll see it put some numbers out, and that was just kind of getting these together. So now, if I go back into Scratch and move this thing around, you'll notice it also moves the red dot, and you see the numbers here. So each time it moves, it's reporting its X and Y position to processing, and then processing is using that in the sketch. And the same way back, if I give the focus to the processing screen and click, it's sending the X and Y position of this green cube back to Scratch, and then Scratch is using that to update the position and heading of the beetle. So I think this could be pretty useful for our cube robots for the World Science Festival workshop, if we want to make an easy way for kids to program the cube bots using Scratch. The cool thing about Scratch is it's really easy to program stuff. If you haven't used it before, it's It's the system that Mindstorms was sort of originally based on. So it's this kind of block idea, and you have sensing blocks and motion blocks and all sorts of different blocks, and you can just drag them in and click them together, and you create little logic stacks in this way. So I reckon this might be an easy way for people to do some simple programming. Alright. Oh, one last thing. In order to run this, you need to download the standalone offline editor for Scratch. Normally it runs in the browser, but in order to use the extension, you need to have the offline version. And when you load it up, you just need to go to the File menu, and instead of just clicking it, you need to Shift click it, and you get this extra option here, Import Experimental HTTP Extension. Click that and then navigate to the folder where the extension is, and then click on the JSON file that we looked at the start. This little definition file, open that up, and then it imports the block shift defined into the More Blocks section. And if you need to remove them, you can remove them from that little drop down there. Okay.